We're holding on Daf Chaf in Mesechus Zevachim. All the learning should be an incredible schos. Refuah Shlema for Gavriel Simcha b'Miriam Ahuva. B'Seich Sha'ar Chali Yisrael. We're going to continue trying to get all the shirim up a day or two in advance for all the Yom Tovim coming up. Says the Gemara, over about 20 lines at the bottom. We pulled up a drop short. The two dots on Yutes Amid Beis. Tanu Rabbanan. Kidesh Yadav Viraglav Bayoim. If a kohen was mekadesh his hands and his feet during the day, Ein Tzarech Lekadesh Balayla. He does not have to do it at night. There are avodas that were done at night, burning different parts of the karbanos. You do not need a new Kiddush Yadayim Viraglayim. However, 1 second, where's our highlighter? Balai Lavi was mekadesh his hands and feet at night. Then sarich lekadesh bayoim. Then you have to be mekadesh again the next morning. Divrei Rebbe. Shei Rebbe Omer Lina Mayelas Bekidush Yadayim Veraglayim. Lina, an overnight period, helps, or it more particularly would be it nullifies the Kiddush Yadayim Veraglayim. Rav Shimon Omer, no, ein lino el Kiddush Yadayim Veraglayim, and therefore he would not have to rewash his hands. Tani Idach learned in another brayso. A kohen is up all night, burning the fats and the limbs, doing the avodah mizbeach. Le'oira at the night, at light, at dawn. Tayo nekiddush Yadayim Veraglayim divrei Rebbe. Afilu meichin v'adasari yamim ein tzarech lekadesh. You do not need a new kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Says the Gemara utzricha. Even though both of these braysos seem to teach the same detail, the detail being how long does your kiddush yadayim v'raglayim stand? Why do we need both of them? Says the Gemara the Ashvin and Gamaisa. I would have thought, I would have thought that's where Rebbe said his din, that he has to do it again in the morning. Why? Because there was an interruption. He went from one avodah to the next. But in the second case, that he never finished the avodah, Rebbe. Rebbe, Rav Shimon. And that's case number one. The Ashmina and Bahavil is in the second case. Bakam Rebbe Lazar Rev Shimon. Aval Baba in the first case. And the Rebbe Sricha. That's why we need both cases. But now that we know why we need both cases, says Gemara Tachlis, where does this come from? My time of the Rebbe, where does this thing come from? Techsev. Says the Gemara, Begishtam, when they approach. That says the Gemara, that in the morning, once it's a new day, it's a new avodah, it's considered to be a new walking to the mizbeach, and therefore it's a new begishtam, it's going to be a new kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. My term does Rav Shimon Techsev, b'voyam, says the Gemara, when they come, that once a day is enough. V'dach nami oksev b'voyam. So what does Rabbi do with b'voyam? Ikse begishtam like b'voyam, hava mina kol gisha v'gisha. Each and every time you approach the Mizbeach, you need a new Kiddush Yadayim V'raglayim. You would have thought, Kozach one V'vayim. V'edach nami, Rav Shimon, Aksev V'gashtam. Iksev V'vayim, Aksev V'gashtam, Avamin Afilu, Abiyah Reikanis, even Abiyah Reikanis, even it is coming to the Mizbeach for no reason, you would still need to wash your hands and your legs. Kiddush Yadayim V'raglayim. Says the Gemara, Abiyah Reikanis, like Sev L'Shares. Why would you think that? The Torah says, L'sharis, Ella begishtam ibayli. Says the Gemara, you know what we need begishtam for? L'chder Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Dam Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Ha'kol maidim kiddesheni shulavosh. Everyone is maskim. By the second kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, the kohen does it kishulavosh mekadesh while he's already dressed. Amar kra ay begishtam. Mishen machosar elagisha. He's fully dressed. He just needs to approach the mizbeach. So you wash your hands, bilvad. That's going to come to exclude someone who's not wearing his clothing yet. that he will not be able to do the appropriate Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. He's going to have to first get dressed and then do it. Continues the Gemara. Lahaktir Isha Lamli. Why did the Torah have to continue and say that with regards to the Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim, that when they are Haktir Isha, when they raise up in smoke of fire, when they raise up the carbon, says the Gemara, shouldn't this be included, as we just said, B'Vayam B'Gishtam? Why do we need that? Why does the Torah have to single out and explain Lahaktir Isha? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. The top of Chafam and Aleph, Ma'u the Tema. You know why? I would have thought, Hani Mili Avoida de Me'akva Kapara. I would have thought that only an Avoida is Ma'akiv the Kapara, Aval Avoida de Ma'akvi Kapara. But an Avoida which is not essential, the burning of the pieces of the carbon are not Ma'akev. Loi, Kamashlan, so that's the Chiddush, that even those require Kiddush, Yagdayim, Viraglayim. Continuing the theme of Kiddush, Yagdayim, Viraglayim, the Gemara goes into other particulars of the process. 3 lines down, Chafam and Aleph, Kiyasar, Avdimi, Amar, Rav Yechon, Abayi, Elfa. Ledivri, Oimer, Ein, Lina, Mayelos, Kiddush, Yagdayim, Viraglayim. That's a night, leaving over a night, does not mess it up with regard to Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. May Kiyar Ma'u Shifsalu. The waters of the Kiyar, if they remain overnight, they become puzzle. Miyam Rinan Hani Lemai Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. Do we say that what are the waters of the Kiyar? Therefore, the waters are there specifically for Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim, and therefore Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim Gufay Loi Pasulina. That itself will not become Basal Belina. Or maybe because the Maisa, it is Mekadesh B'Kli Sharis, it's in the Kiyar, therefore it will become Basal by staying overnight. So says the Gemara, Ki Asa Ravin Amar Rav Yirmiyah, in the first white line, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rav Yechlan. Hadar Pashid Ilfa. Ilfa came back around and he answered, Ki Machlekes Bezu, just like you have a Machlekes Stam about Lina, so too, Kach Machlekes Bezu will be the same thing, whether the waters inside the Kiyar, whether they will be Pasal Belina. According to Rabbi, the waters will be Pasal overnight. According to those of Shimon, they will not. Asks the Gemara on the second wide line. Amar Ravin, Amar the fun of Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna, Rabbi, Ata Imer Kain, Rabbi, you say this, that the water does not become puzzle. Elachi Amar Avasi Amar Rabbi on the third line, Mishmei Delfa. Kiyar Shloshaku Mi Be'erev. If the Kiyar was not submerged at night, Mikadish Venu L'Avodas Laila, then what? A kohen could use it for Avodas Laila, but L'Machar Einai Mikadish. So says the Gemara, quoting a Brisa, that if the Kiyar is not in the water overnight, then it can be used for avodah of the Laila, but not for the morning. Vavina ba, 4 lines into white lines, and we wonder, L'machar Einai Mikadesh. Why do late tzarich lekiddush? Is it because you don't need to mekadesh the next morning, as you just did it at night? Omar ka pasha le mifshat. According to you, we should have a teretz that according to those of Shimon, the water will not become basal be'lina. So we want to bring a raya that the waters can stay overnight and it's not an issue. Tashema ben katin asashnayim asar dod lekiyar. Ben katin, as we'll see, he made different parts of the kiyar. He made 12 spouts for the kiyar, and here it is. Avoiza mochni lekiyar. He made a wheel, a wooden contraction for the kiyar. Why? Because we didn't want the waters to be possible. So every night the kiyar was lowered into the ground, into the well, and taken up in the morning. So my love, Shimoni. So says the Gemara, this like Rishita of Lazar Shimon, that if it would have stayed overnight, it would have been a problem. So they put it into the water, into the well. Loi, Rebbe, Vavin the Reisha Lazar of Shimon, David Amir Lazar of Shimon. Tekatani Reisha, Bala Yitzal Parai, says in the Reisha, a Mishnah Yuma, Kohen Gadol comes to his par, Parai Yoimir Benulam Mizvech, and Parai sends him on Mizvech, Reish Ladam Bana Lamir. So who is the Shita of this Brisa that we're quoting? Based on the aforementioned details, Rev Shimon, the Tani Zeh Safa, Mikhail Zech Sfani, Vari Kaisla Zara Sfani, Kanaiko Zech Kulai Safa, and the Rev Yis Rev Yuda. But Rev Shimon Maisev, Avenulam Mizveach, Rabbi Maisev, Amakachis Ragli Kahanim, Umakachis Ragli Israel, Avo Min Khalifa Islefnim, Akodman Shapas. So says the Gemara, what do we see very clearly? See very clearly, it says Rev Shimon. So how are you going to tell me that within the same Mishnah, we're switching around cases? Says the Gemara of Tizbra, is this a raya of Rav Shimoni? V'loi Rabbi, Hashta Rabbi, Ad Rabbi Yis, Rabbi Yehuda, Maisif. Of Rav Shimon, Loi Maisif. Of course he's going to be adding on. So rather, says the Gemara, 12 lines to the bottom, the first one line is Elazar. Ana nachi kamina. Says the Gemara, no, I'll bring you a different raya. Look, Jesus Ragli Kahanim, Umak Jesus Ragli Yisrael. Elamai, Rav Shemini. Look, when make him Sfaini at Kaisel Azara Sfaini. Elamai is like Lameimar, Misham Choshet to Kain Gadol, Hachanami Sham Choshet to Kain Gadol. Must be that what's the reason they put it there? Because the Kain Gadol's week. We're talking about on Yom Kippur. So to over here, we're going to say the same thing, but therefore we will have no kasha. And again, always nice siyata de Shemaya coming on the heels of Yom Kippur, having Gemaras at the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Continues the Gemara at the 2 dots, 8 lines at the bottom of Chav Amid Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Kiddush Yadav Raglav L'Shuma Zadash. If a kohen was mekadesh his hands and his legs to the Shuma Zadash L'Machar, Ein Tzarich L'Kadesh. The next morning, he doesn't have to do it again. Why Shar Kiddush B'Tchilas Havodah? Because he did it at the beginning of the Havodah at night. Says the Gemara, Leman, Il Rabbi Amar Pastalina, Il Rabbi Shimon Amar Ein Tzarich L'Kadesh Afilu Mikan V'Asar Yamin. According to the Rabbi Shimon, you wait even 10 days. And therefore, what was the reason Rabbi Yochanan just said? The reason was you already did it at the beginning of that void. That's not the reason. According to Rabbi Shimon, the same Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim could go on and on and on. So Amar Abaye says Abaye Lagam Rabbi Valina Derabanan he Umayda. Really going to shoot this Rabbi. But according to Lina go Derabanan Umaydi the Mikrais like ever at Savalai Pasalina. And they're Mayda from the time the chicken crows until the morning will not passel up with Lina. Rav Amar Shimini. Rabbi Yochanan Devara Mitzchilas Havodah V'loi B'Seif Havodah. He only agrees with him in one part, not the other part. Meisvei asked the Gemara, Ruach HaKahanim She'ara V'in Ratzu Ba'u Mi'aru V'Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim Minakiyar. We see a Mishnah on Tamid. The Kohanim see that the one who removes the ashes went down, so they come running to the Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim. Why? So they could do their Avodah. So Bishlama, what's the kasha as we turn over the Chafam Beis? Says the Gemara, Bishlama Abaye. According to Abaye, the Mukin Lak Rabbi. According to Abaye, who says that we're going with Shitas Rabbi, then there's no kasha. Why is there no kasha? Umaydi Rabbi, because the Gemara says Basalina from the rooster crow until the morning. It says impossible. Therefore, Hamani Rabbi, everything's good. El Rava, the Mukin Lak Rav Shimon. Aval Rebbe, because I gave her at Safar, it's possible, Hamani. So who's going to be the Tana over here? Rabbi Basalina, Rav Shimon Amar, Afilu Mikan V'Asar Yamim. And Zalik Kadesh is nothing to do with just that morning. Says the Gemara, Lodim Kravlos Rav Shimon, V'chmaiskinon V'koyhani Chadeti. With new Koyhanim, they did not do the Avodah the night before, and that's the reason why they had to do Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim now, before beginning their avodah. Ibai leho, 10 lines down at the 2 dots, the Gemara is a shaila. Yitzia ma'u shetoyel b'kiddush yadayim reglayim. If you leave, does that nullify your kiddush yadayim reglayim and you have to do it again? It's if shalayim lina loy pasla. If you're going to tell me leaving overnight does not passel, maybe that's because why? It's loy parish. Because he doesn't stop doing the avodah, and that's why he doesn't need to do kiddush yadayim reglayim. Aval Yitziyah, when he leaves the chutzner of the Beis HaMikdash, the parish, Asuch HaMesach Tatayu, it is considered as a chadas, and you need to start anew. No, at any moment he can come back. So is that called a hesach hadas? Tata Shema says the Gemara, Kiddush Yadav V'Alav V'Nitmu. If he's mekadosh his hands and his legs, then he became Tamei Matbilin. He goes into the mikvah to get rid of the Tamah. V'Yitzach L'Kadesh, he doesn't have to do Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim again. Yatsu Areim B'Kedushasan is his hands and feet. If Yatsu, if he left the Chatzar, then Areim B'Kedushasan, they stay in their Kedusha, they don't need a new Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. So what do we see? We see klar that Yatsu leaving does not invalidate. Says Gemara, Yatsu Yadav Lo Kami Bailan. If his hands went out, that's not a shayla. Why is it not a shayla? Because it's clear that what? Just his hands went out, he would not need Kiddush Yadayim. He would not need. He got me by letting out to go Gufa in my whole body left. Shemash Lorachas Yadayim Raglayim. He did not do Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. Mikadesh B'Kli Sharetz B'Fneim. If he did not do Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, then he washes with a Kli Sharetz inside the Beis HaMikdash. Kiddush B'Kli Sharetz B'Chutz. However, if he did it outside, B'Kli Chol B'Fnim, Oishadav Meimara, Vavar Avodasai Psula. He's not going to have the requisite Tahira, and the Avodah will be puzzle. So says the Gemara, time it sounds sounds like Avodas Gesheira. Says the Gemara, no raya. Why not? Tell me Kiddush B'Kli Sharetz B'Chutz Hechi Dami Konda B'Gada Levar V'Kiddush. Maybe that's Gufa, the case that we're talking about. Avol Yatzikol Gufay Tibaylecha. However, in a case where the kohen went completely out, that would be a shayla. So Amar le Rav Zil Rav Papa Tashema Yatzachos the Mechitas Chaim Asa Azara L'Shaistan Tefila. If he waited there, then he has to Tefila again. Him Lefisha Ta'an Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. He's only outside momentarily, then he has to wash his hands and legs again. Amar le Yacham Ayaskinan Kon Shiatzel Esech Raglav Ulahatel Meimim. You went to use the bathroom. Hi, he says Mar Habehedia Ketanla. Kol Meisik Raglav Ta'an Tefila V'chol Matzamayim Ta'an Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. Tana V'Hadim Rafari says, but you're right. We learned it and then we explain it. But you are correct. It has been dealt with prior. So Tash Shema, one more try for Raya. Parar Rav Chiya Rav Yisi Amar Mekadosh B'Kli Sharetz B'Fnim. V'Yaitze V'Yichlam V'Afilu B'Chutz V'Afilu B'Kli Chol V'Afilu B'Kiddush Al Chares. Even with an earthenware drinking cup. So what do we see according to V'Chiya Rav Yisi? You need to have a real Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. And even still, leaving the Beis HaMikdash, leaving the Chatzar will not passel. Amar Abba Shani Bar Ovcha Meiseh B'Chutz. Therefore, Loi Pasla Ba Yitzia. Yachi Lamali Mekadesh Kein Avoida. Actually, Lamali the Mekadesh. Why must the Kohen do Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim from the Kli? Shari says, Mar Kein Avoida B'Nim. It's a similar, it's a minimized, it's a mimic fashion. It has to be similar to the avodah that's done inside, and that's why we require that to even be done outside. Pick it up for the next shayla of the Gemara the next year. Amir Tzah Hashem.